Alright guys, BLM here back with a new video, and in this video we're back with another video talking about American Ninja Warrior, where, again, I talked about at the end of my A&W 16 review that I am done doing reviews for American Ninja Warrior, and I am going to stick to that. However, there are still a few A&W videos I still want to do, and this one being one I had planned on doing for a while, just never got around to it, but here we are. We're going to be talking about my top 10 competitors of all time for American Ninja Warrior. Now, I've already done this for Sasuke in the past. I do think I'll be utilizing very similar criteria for this list, where essentially this will be more so an assessment of these competitors' careers as a whole, more so than, again, who is the best at this current point, as I think that gives you very different results, and to fair, it would be very much catered towards a lot of the teens in the modern day. However, again, this is going to be more so based on their careers, what they've achieved over time, how they were in comparison to their fields at the time, and also longevity is also something that will definitely play a factor into this as well. So with that, again, we'll be going through my top 10 competitors, but first I have a lot of honorable mentions. Let's get into it. First of all, I'd like to mention the fact that I really only considered people that had at least made it to stage 2 on the actual course. I did not include anybody that didn't, as again, I felt like, again, those people are not making a top 10 list. But also, again, to me, I do feel like your performance at the national finals is what is really important in American Ninja Warrior. I mean, until A&W 17, and I guess you could take 12 out of that as well. But again, really at the end of the day, the way you win American Ninja Warrior is through completing this 4-stage course. So, and through that, I think that is what we should be looking at here in terms of who is the best. Again, who performed the best on the actual course that determines how you win the overall show. Again, no one that never cleared stage 1 was ever in contention here. However, again, there's still a lot of people I want to mention before we get to the actual proper list. Starting off with, again, 2 people here that, again, we're not really ever in contention, but were people that obviously started off being the top dogs of the show, that being Brian Orozco, Levi Muhlenberg, obviously 2 legends of the show that are sadly forgotten about nowadays. But again, at the time of A&W 1, they were the biggest stars of the show. They were the 2 last men standing of that season. Again, while they were never really in contention here, as I felt like a lot of their best work was really done through American Ninja Challenge and their other Sasuke performances than how they actually did on American Ninja Warrior. For them, it was really only A&W 1 and kind of 2 where they were like the best competitors on the board. But again, that is a relatively short period of time, and also, again, they never even made that deep into stage 3, so again, I felt at the end of the day it was tough to really justify them being on the proper list. Also, again, I will at least mention, again, all the women that have cleared stage 1, again, Alyssa Beard, Jessie Lebrecht, Jessie Graff, again, all of which would have been cool to have in the top 10. I don't think they were anywhere close, though. Though, again, down the road, I definitely see myself doing a top 10 female competitor list for A&W. Or again, when I get to that, obviously they will be very much in contention, though sadly for this list, not really that close. Next up, I want to talk about people that I think have the potential to become all-time great competitors, people that, again, seasons down the road, if the show lasts that long, I could see them being in the conversation. Though, again, simply just have 2 shorter careers at this current point. Got people like Ethan Barnecki, who has had 2 seasons, 1 finalist appearance, the other one's a stage 3 appearance. Again, very good record, though, again, just 2 seasons. Hans Hertz literally has only been on 1 season. He made the finals, so again, very good season there, but again, just not enough really there. Jay Lewis is someone that I think has really gotten screwed out of really being in contention, because I think if Jay Lewis did not get injured for A&W's 15 and 16, I think there's a very good shot Jay Lewis is in the top 10. I think it's very likely he makes the finals of both of those seasons, but sadly, obviously his injury makes it so he's really only had 2 true seasons. While he has had a finalist appearance in that, the other one's, again, a stage 1 fail, and again, I think there's a lot of potential there, though sadly he could not make it on. Josiah Papel is also, again, another one of these people that has a very good track record. 4 seasons, 4 stage 2 appearances, 1 finalist appearance. Again, a very good record, but again, just not quite good enough yet to be in the top 10. Kai Beckstrand's another one of these. Again, just had a finalist appearance. Definitely very talented competitor, though I think his record so far has been a little bit spotty. Again, a stage 1 fail. Again, failing the first obstacle, stage 2. Again, it's a little bit inconsistent, and I think he definitely has the potential. Nazca Garamore is definitely someone that, again, is probably going to end up being in the top 10, I would assume. Again, such an incredible record so far. 2 seasons, 2 finalist appearances, and the same thing goes to Noah Moner, who, again, also, same thing, 2 seasons, 2 finalist appearances. It's kind of insane how good their records are, but sadly, again, just 2 seasons is not quite enough to make it on to the top 10. So again, just a couple more seasons, and I think they'll definitely be on. Now we're getting the people who have had longer careers on the show, so just, again, legitimately just did not make the cut, but again, we're definitely in consideration. First, we've got Adam Rail. Adam Rail, I think, is someone that, again, clearly has always been a very talented competitor. Pretty consistently makes it to stage 2. He's been on 7 seasons, 5 stage 2 appearances. The problem is that he fails stage 2 most of the time. Has only made the stage 3 once, though again, in that performance, he almost cleared stage 3. The only person to kind of clear Kane Lane that did not make it to the finals of ANW 11. Again, a very impressive run there. But again, I just think at the end of the day, most of the people in the top 10 are people that do have finalist appearances, and those that don't have more storied careers, where Adam just simply barely misses the cut. Austin Gray, another similar person. I think Austin Gray is probably higher than Adam Rail realistically. I mean, Austin Gray has the same amount of seasons. Again, one less stage 2 appearance, though 2 more stage 3 appearances, where Austin Gray is just more consistently able to get to stage 3. Now again, he has continuously gassed out in stage 3, where again, I think that could definitely be a criticism there. But again, Adam Rail gassed out the one time he was there too, to where again, I think they're kind of close. But I think Austin's consistency getting to stage 3 definitely puts him probably higher than Adam Rail, but again, not enough to still make it the top 10. Even though, too fair, I could definitely see an argument. Again, I think his 3 stage 3 appearances is pretty impressive. Again, tied with the most stage 3 appearances out of anyone that did not make the top 10, to where again, I do think Austin is very close to being contention. Yeah, again, I just feel like there's a couple other people that have more storied careers as a whole. Next, moving on to Brent Stephenson, and I mean, I don't really want to talk about Brent Stephenson. I don't really like Brent Stephenson, but again, his career is good at points and very rocky realistically. Again, he's been on 10 seasons, made the Vegas 8 times, made the stage 2 6 times, made stage 3 twice. Those 2 times being in A&Ws 2 and 4, where obviously in A&W 4, he was the first person to clear the ultimate cliffhanger. That was an easier version of the one that everyone failed before him. But still, I mean, again, Brent is definitely a legendary figure in the show. He just also is a terrible human being, and so I don't really like praising him too much at this point. But again, he was a big star at the time. I mean, at the time of like ANW 5, he was definitely the biggest name of the show, but I still think his record's a bit spotty, particularly in the back half of his career, to where I felt like it was tough to really put him in the top 10. Next up, we got Brian Arnold, who is someone that I would have loved to make the top 10. Obviously, a very legendary figure. Again, the first person to make it to the flying bar in the normal season. Again, I think his fail on the flying bar is one of the greatest moments in all of A&W. However, that is his only stage 3 appearance. I think that's definitely something that definitely harms Brian Arnold here. And the fact that he is very consistent. He has been on 7 seasons, made to Vegas all 7 of those seasons, has only failed stage 1 once in all that time. And again, that was even the spot where he still made it to the end. He just timed out. And that was in his last season on the show. But again, he just fails stage 2 almost every single time. And again, the one time he broke through, again, he had this really legendary performance, but still couldn't get it to the end. Now, I think there is an argument that Brian Arnold could be higher on here, because I do think at the time that he was competing, he definitely was, again, one of the best ninjas around. I think if he made it to the final stage, he probably wins, especially considering how much I know he practiced on rope climbing. So again, had he just been able to break through to stage 3, I think he is a very likely winner of the show. But again, I think just the record's a bit too spotty, especially his consistency of getting to stage 3, to really have him in contention here. Next up, someone that I really, really wanted to put in the top 10, but I just couldn't, and that is David Campbell. I just think David Campbell's record is just way too spotty. It's just way too inconsistent, and maybe even inconsistent is not even the right term, considering he's consistently just failing stage 1, where I think in many ways, obviously, David Campbell's like the Yamada of A&W, this person who had a very good career at the very beginning. Again, last man standing in A&W's 2 and 3, failed the ultimate cliffhanger both times. A&W 3 almost clears, and if he clears the ultimate cliffhanger, he probably wins the entire show, where the only danger spot following the ultimate cliffhanger in A&W 3 was the chain seesaw. And if he clears that, again, I think he demolishes the rope climb in the final stage, as we've seen him do in Sasuke Vietnam, to where, again, I think David Campbell was so close to a Kanzan there, but it's still a spot where David Campbell has just simply never been able to recreate that since. I mean, ever since A&W 3, he's literally only cleared stage 1 once, ultimately ending up failing on the Wingnut Alley, which it's still a spot where, again, his record is just way too inconsistent afterwards. So where, again, I really wanted to put him on this just simply because of legacy, because obviously, again, at the times of A&W's 2 and 3, he was the top ninja around, but I just think it's the fact that he was never able to really replicate that following that, and was, again, never really amongst the best of the best in the following seasons. That kind of made it tough to quantify him in the top 10 for me. So again, sadly, I had to leave David Campbell behind here. Also, sadly, I had to leave behind James McGrath, who is someone that, again, also kind of inconsistent record, though, again, a little bit more consistent than David Campbell, especially nowadays. I think James McGrath has obviously stood the test of time a bit better than David Campbell. Mind you, obviously, James McGrath is younger, and that definitely plays a factor there. Where, again, the fact that David Campbell is doing what he's doing at the age that he is very impressive. But still, James McGrath, again, has appeared on 12 seasons, made it to the finals 10 of those times. However, has failed stage 1 6 of those times. And I think that's obviously, again, not great. Failed stage 2 twice, made the stage 3 2 times. Again, both early on in the show. But still, I do think he's someone that's on a bit of a rise now. Obviously, his ANW 16 performance is very strong, where he actually cleared stage 2, that didn't move on due to dumb rules. But again, I think he's someone that's definitely on the rise. I think he's definitely, again, a better modern competitor than someone like David Campbell, though I just think at the end of the day, the record is not that dissimilar to where he also did not make the cut. Also, I consider Josh Levin, who, again, I think you could also quantify alongside the teens that we talked about earlier, someone that, again, had a relatively short career, where, again, he's had 4 seasons, though, again, consistently gets to stage 2, has never not made it to stage 2, those only made it past it, obviously, once, but did make the finals in ANW 14, and to be fair, I think Josh Levin potentially would have cracked the top 10, or at least been a bit higher in contention for me, had he actually had a good final appearance. However, again, his finalist appearance was kind of lackluster, where, again, I think before that, I would have always assumed that Josh Levin, he makes the final stage, he's going to demolish the rope climb. Then we see him, and he's the worst of the 5. Again, I think that has always been lackluster to me, to where I think my lack of faith in his roping ability at this point, so it definitely knocks him down a notch. Also, again, not as many seasons as some of the people that do end up at the top, so again, I sadly did not squeeze him onto the list. Also did not put on Najee Richardson, and for Najee wasn't particularly close. I did feel like I want to mention him here, as I do think at his peak, he was definitely a top tier competitor. Again, one of the only people to clear stage 2 in ANW 9, one of the toughest stage 2s in the history of the show. Proceeds to also almost clear stage 2 again in ANW 10, which was still a very difficult stage 2. Again, I think that is something to definitely praise him for. The problem is that the rest of his career is kind of bad. I think really his entire career after ANW 10 is just very lackluster. Again, constant stage 1 fails. Obviously struggles with asthma, and definitely have to sympathize him for that. But I just feel like his career outside that, it's not particularly great. I mean, when looking at the numbers, again, he's made the stage 1 7 times, has only cleared it 3 times, with only one stage 3 appearance. That one, again, failing the cliffhanger only halfway through. I think it's just really tough to have Najee in the top 10. Again, I at least want to mention him here as someone that definitely deserves some kudos for what he was able to accomplish, especially towards the beginning of his career. Also going to mention Paul Casimir, and Paul Casimir also obviously used to be known as Mr. Consistency. Appeared on 6 seasons, cleared stage 1 in 5 of those seasons. The only one he didn't clear was his final appearance on the show. Beyond that, made stage 3 twice. So again, he had a consistent record, though considering, again, his best performance is still just failing the ultimate cliffhanger. I do think it's, again, tough to really put him in the top 10. Also, similar thing for Ryan Stratis, though obviously Ryan Stratis has more seasons, 13 seasons, made it to Vegas 9 times, only cleared stage 1 5 of those times, though did clear stage 2 twice, one of those appearances being a bit more recent in ANW 11, so again, that's something that at least praise him for, that has a bit more longevity in his career. But I think he's in, again, another one, kind of similar to James McGrath. I just think it's still tough to really put him on the list, despite, again, there are some points where he does have some good runs in the modern day. I just think, considering his best performance is still, again, just the ultimate cliffhanger, it's a little bit tough to put him on, especially considering his record's a little bit inconsistent. But also going to consider Sean Bryan, who has had a pretty good career, where, I mean, alongside Austin Gray, he is the only other person that did not make the top 10 that has made it to stage 3 times, where he just had his best season ever, and getting to Pizza Party, clearing the ultimate cliffhanger, where, again, I think that's definitely something to praise him for. Now, beyond that, I still don't feel like those accomplishments are quite enough to crack the top 10. Now, again, he's definitely in contention. Again, he, alongside Austin Gray, Adam Rail, even like Brian Arnold, again, all those people are kind of like hovering right outside the top 10, though sadly, I did not feel like Sean Bryan quite squeezed into it. And similar thing goes with the next person. We got Travis Rosen, who also, again, very consistent career. Appeared on 10 seasons, made the Vegas 9 of those seasons, made the stage 2 6 times, though sadly only made the stage 3 once. And again, I think that's another thing kind of damning for him. Only one stage 3 appearance. Again, that one not even making it to the ultimate cliffhanger, to where, again, while he has had a very strong career, I just think it's tough to really say he's top 10. But with that, we are now at the top 10 of the list. Which I will say, I think from my perspective, the top 9 of this list are pretty solid. I felt pretty confident about those. The number 10 spot was the one that was very contentious. Again, this is a person that was fighting for this slot with, you know, like Austin Gray, Adam Rail, Sean Bryan, Brian Arnold. However, the slot ended up going to Flip Rodriguez. And I think this one's a bit tough. As we talk through all these people, a lot of the other people we just mentioned have been to stage 3 more than Flip and have had better performances in stage 3 than Flip. I mean, Flip is someone that has only made the stage 3 once, and in that performance failed the ultimate cliffhanger, which again is not a great best result for the top 10 here. Where, I mean, like, straight up, I mean, when we'll look at the ultimate top 10, there's only one other person that has never made it to the final stage in the top 10. And that person obviously has a much better track record of making it to stage 3. However, I think Flip's career is still very impressive. I mean, again, he's been on 14 seasons, made to Vegas 11 of those times. But again, one of those being A&W 12, by the way. Out of the 13 proper seasons he's been on, he's only not made to Vegas twice, which again is a very good record. Again, he's only failed stage 1 twice. Now again, there's safety pass, blah, blah, blah. But still, in terms of the final result, he's only failed stage 1 twice. Made the stage 2 9 of those times. Tied for the record with the other person in the top 10 that isn't a finalist. And I think the fact that Flip consistently makes it to stage 2 is very impressive. Again, obviously the fact that he barely clears stage 2 is definitely worrisome, though even in that, again, he does clear legitimately, obviously in A&W 14. He also, again, was very close to clearing in A&W 11, to where that was a spot where I believe he was sick. And the fact that he still almost clears the stage, I think is very impressive. Also, he does actually clear in A&W 16, where again, that would have been another stage 3 appearance. So again, he really should have had 3 stage 3 appearances at this point. So again, I just think his consistency of getting to stage 2 is very impressive, to where, and I don't know how confident I am in Flip in stage 3. I mean, realistically, obviously he failed the cliffhanger. Mind you, again, he has claimed that was because of the chalk, to where, again, I do think he would clear the cliffhanger. I think he probably would have struggled on Pizza Party in A&W 16 if I were to guess there, but I do think Flip is someone that does at least have the potential to at least make it to the end of stage 3. And again, I think the fact that Flip's been able to maintain very consistent over the years, again, is consistently able to still make it to Vegas in the modern day, and is still remaining very competitive in the modern day. Again, it's not like the likes of Ryan Stratis or David Campbell, who, while again, still very good, not, again, good enough to do well on the modern course. Again, Flip is still doing that. So again, I think that is the reason why I do have Flip in the top 10. I just think he has a level of consistency, and also I do have more faith in him at this point to really bolster that career moving forward. Also, just has a lot of longevity. I mean, obviously being amongst those that have been on the most amount of seasons. Again, still has as consistent of a record as he does, to where, while again, I did debate his placement here with someone like Brian Arnold in particular, who again had more of a chance at winning at a particular point, also was extremely consistent and had a better best performance. Though again, for me, Flip ends up edging him out here simply because, again, he has double the amount of seasons, has still maintained a similar level of consistency, with also, again, having this major uptick recently, and also has these excuses for why his record isn't as clean as it could be, with, again, some very wonky stage 2 fails. But again, for me, between the two in particular, again, it was pretty close, but again, I felt like Flip barely landed in the top 10 here, and to be fair, is probably very prone to be getting kicked out by many of the other teens that are currently doing extremely well, but I still think his track record is very impressive, leaving him at number 10. Now number 9, moving on to his training partner, we got RJ Roman. And RJ Roman, again, I think this one was a little bit debatable for me. And I think the main sticking point, obviously, for why he's in the top 10 here is because of his 2 finalist appearances. I think that is obviously very impressive. A&W 14 and A&W 15. Where, again, looking at the people that made the top 10 here, outside of the 2 that never made it to the finals, everyone else has either won or made the finals multiple times. So again, RJ qualifies under that, to where really, for me, it was more so a question of, is RJ's career expansive enough to make the top 10? To where obviously you do have the likes, again, Nazca Garmore, Noah Molnir, who also have those records of 2 finalist appearances. Where while obviously RJ has more seasons, and was it enough to make the top 10? Again, obviously I decided on yes. Now, I will say RJ's track record's not as consistent as I thought it was. I mean, he's someone that has been to Vegas 6 times, has failed stage 1 twice in that period, which is not great. Has only made the stage 2 4 of those times, has failed stage 2 1 of those times, has failed stage 3 1 of those times. It's where, again, I think his record's not as consistent as I would want it to be, to where, again, I don't think he's fully locked into this top 10 as in the likes of Noah Molnir, Nazca Garmore could potentially be if they continue their streak. But I do think for now, RJ is pretty easily in the top 10. Again, I think those 2 finalist appearances is still extremely impressive, and he's still obviously amongst the best A&W competitors in the modern day, to where, again, I think at the end of the day, it's still enough to squeeze into the top 10 here at number 9. Now, number 8, and this one was a bit of a debate. I mean, I think number 8 here is someone that, legacy-wise, deserves it. Actual quality of their career, a little bit debatable. But at number 8, I do have Jeff Britton, obviously the first person to ever content on A&W, and through that, deserves a lot of kudos. Obviously, again, he was the first ever to clear stage 4, and in general, obviously, only 6 people have ever cleared stage 4, to where, considering that stat, obviously, again, it's very difficult for one of those 6 to not make it into the top 10. Well, I feel like Jeff was probably the person I was a little bit hazy on whether or not he would make it, as realistically, Jeff has only had one good season, where again, he's been on 4 seasons, which even then, that's not that many. I mean, again, looking at a lot of these other teens, again, the teens that started in A&W 13, they've been on the same amount of seasons as Jeff Britton. So again, it's kind of insane that's the case. And when looking beyond that, again, Jeff Britton's career is, again, a time he didn't even make it to Vegas in his most recent appearance, and him failing stage 1 twice. Again, failing the first obstacle in A&W 8, while also failing the jumping spider in A&W 6. So where again, he's really only had one good season in A&W 7, but again, he won on that season. And I think that's what makes it a bit tough here, because again, I think in many ways you could look at him as someone like an Akiyama in my Sasuke list, where Akiyama did not make the top 10 in that list, where again, that did make me very much question, should Jeff even be here? However, I did decide to still put him here as, again, I think being his ability at the time of A&W 7, I do think if he were to continuously compete on the show around that time, continue to train, I do have faith that he would be able to repeat another appearance similar to that, where I don't think that was just the only time he could ever come close to Kanzen. And while obviously, again, realistically looking at A&W's 9, A&W 10, obviously those were very brutal stage 2s. I don't know if he clears those, but, and if he makes it back to stage 3, it's like, I would again have faith in him being able to complete at least most of that course. Now, I will say actually that even in A&W 7, he does barely clear the flying bar there. He is very much struggling by the end. So I think that does give me some qualms as well. But I do feel like at the end of the day, and Jeff Britton did Kanzen. Again, he's shown the ability to clear the final stage, which has not really changed over the years. Well, also, again, has good ability in the other stages that, again, I think we can definitely look at it as a bit inconsistent. And I think there's also, again, just lack of a track record for him. But I do feel like at the end of the day, I do feel like the fact that he does, again, win the show, can clear stage 4, is probably enough to put him here at number 8. Now, number 7, moving on to similar thing, but for the other Kanzen of A&W 7, we got Isaac Caldiero. Now, straight up, I feel a bit more confident about Isaac, though realistically, Isaac and Jeff's track records are almost the same. Now, Isaac's, again, is slightly better, but again, they both have only been on 4 seasons, both of which did not make it to Vegas on their most recent season, where Isaac at least made the semis, so again, at least credit for that. But again, they both failed the balance obstacle in their runs there, where again, they did not make it to Vegas. Now, again, unlike Jeff, Isaac has at least cleared stage 1 twice, so that's something, though they both do have a jumping spider fail, matching them there. And obviously, again, they really only have one truly great season in A&W 7. Now, again, obviously a minor pro for Jeff is the fact that he obviously cleared every course that he was on. Even Jeff within that season failed the body prop in semifinals, but to be fair, I don't really criticize him that much for that because, again, who cares about semifinals? But still, I do think Isaac is in a spot where I do find his overall Kanzen a lot more impressive. Obviously, he clears the final stage in a faster time than Jeff, obviously being the person that ends up actually getting the prize money by the end. Also, I think his stage 3 performance is definitely more impressive than Jeff's, where again, it seemed like Isaac was not really even struggling throughout all of it, while Jeff, again, barely ends up clearing the flying bar by the end. I think that definitely shows, again, more ability to clear stage 3s in the future. And just in general, again, I just think I would have more faith in Isaac on more seasons than Jeff, where again, we see a little bit more consistency from Isaac. And also, again, just having more impressive individual performances to where at the end of the day, like Jeff more, but I do think in terms of how they perform on their show, I think it's pretty undeniable that Isaac is the better competitor, though again, not by that much, to where that's why he's just a spot above him here at number 7. Now number 6, and at number 6, we're moving back to the only person that doesn't have a finals appearance and remaining in the list, and that person is obviously Joe Moravsky. And obviously I think there'll be people that want Joe to be higher on this list. However, I don't feel like I can, personally. I do feel like Joe, again, obviously he's one of the most consistent competitors of the show, has been on 12 seasons. And again, taking A&W 12 out of it, has never not made the finals of any of the seasons he's been on, has made the stage 2 9 of those times, aka essentially only actually failing stage 1 one time, where the other time he had to drop out due to COVID, and has only failed stage 2 3 of those times. Again, has made it to stage 3 a record 6 number of times, which is, again, very impressive across his run, where, again, I think in comparison to him and Flip, again, the two people that made the top 10 that have never made the final stage, I think easily Joe's record here is more impressive, where Joe has 5 more stage 3 appearances, where, again, that is actually insane, and it has a number of Last Man Standing titles in A&W 6 and 9, and comes relatively close to clearing the A&W 9 course in a spot where that was one of the most brutal stage 3s respective to their time. However, I just don't know if Joe can clear stage 3. And again, I actually think if this was before A&W 16, I might have had Joe higher. I mean, obviously some people moved up from that season anyway, but even without that, I feel like Joe is actually a person that I think my faith in his overall ability went down after A&W 16. Not that, again, Joe is obviously an incredible athlete. I think he still is one of the best in the history of the show. I still think he's in a spot where he is better than he ever has been. However, he's still, again, could not clear stage 3 in a spot where 5 other people did. Where again, he just completely gassed out by the end, which I think makes me feel less confident about him. I think beforehand, it was always a spot where I think he's just gotten kind of unlucky in stage 3, especially again, A&W 11 in particular. Again, his Cane Lane fail was definitely very wonky there. But again, looking at the modern course and how he did in A&W 16, I don't have faith in him being able to actually make it to the final stage with his fail there. Where again, he just seemed completely gassed. A spot where just so many other people were clearing it with ease. Where again, I think the fact that I just don't have real faith in Joe being able to even make it to final stage at this point is something that did definitely harm his placement on this list. Though again, outside that, obviously, incredible record. Again, best record anyone has that hasn't made it to the finals. I think the fact that, again, I just don't have faith in him to even make it to the finals at this point is something that definitely harmed my overall faith in his ability, which does land him here at number 6. Now number 5. At number 5, again, we're down to the 4 remaining people that Kanzen and this person. Obviously, at number 5, we do have Caden Lebsack. And also, it was kind of close. I think Caden and the next person we'll be talking about are definitely a big debate. They both do have 2 finalist appearances. However, that person has a Kanzen where Caden doesn't. But again, Caden is someone that I think was definitely on pace to become, again, potentially the new GOAT of A&W. I mean, I think in his first 2 appearances, he made it to the finals both of those times being last man standing. I'm under the assumption if he made it to the finals again in A&W's 15 and 16, possibly Kanzen's on those seasons. Now, again, I don't know if he necessarily beats Vance Walker, but again, I think he's definitely in a spot where I would have faith in Caden to at least Kanzen on a modern season. However, those last 2 seasons were definitely rocky. Now, again, he had pretty good performances, obviously, in qualifying and semis. Again, got to the safety pass race both times. Obviously, made the stage 2 both of those times. But again, proceeds to fail stage 2 both of those times. And both of which do kind of sloppy mistakes. Now, I'll say his first time around failing the air surfer. I think that one's a little bit more wonky considering there was clearly a issue with the obstacle itself. But I do think his jawbreaker fail was definitely sloppiness there. And again, I do think Caden's one that, again, is clearly one of the best to ever do it. I mean, again, the fact that he made 2 finalist appearances, especially one in A&W 13 where no one else made the finals, I think is just so impressive. However, again, he's in a spot now where he's competing against other people that have Kanzen, some more than once, to where, again, I just think it's a tough spot to make it higher on this list. Though, again, I did very much debate the next person we'll be talking about because I think his consistency is not that far apart from the next person we'll be talking about. But again, that person just has a win, and I think that is really the main thing differentiating them, which does leave Caden here at number 5. Now, number 4. Moving on to a person that I did question if this person's too high, as realistically looking at their record, it's not that much better than the likes of Isaac and the likes of Jeff Britton. They have the same amount of seasons, same amount of Vegas appearances. Yeah, at least with Isaac, same amount of stage 1 clears. But again, I do think by the end, there is definitely a differentiator there. And the person we're talking about, obviously, is Caleb Bergstrom. Now, again, I do think it might be too early to say Caleb is number 4, though he came out within a really insane stretch in A&W 15 and 16. Again, before that, again, I think he was a good competitor, but never really was able to demonstrate much ability where, I mean, he did have some good, like, qualifying performances, but really, it's, again, like A&W 12, he kind of had a lackluster performance there. A&W 11, he ends up failing towards the end of stage 1. Again, never even made the stage 2 until A&W 15, but in the A&W 15 and 16, really just demolished the course. Never really struggling the entire time, had perfect seasons up to the final stage in both of those seasons, and, again, gets a Kanzen his second time around. In a spot where, again, I can't believe he did it, considering how it wasn't particularly close the first time, and the fact that he improved on his rope climbing ability in just a few days there is really insane. To where, again, I do think Caleb Kanzening in A&W 16 is so impressive to me. So again, going back to the comparison between Jeff and Isaac, to where, again, while he has had the same amount of appearances on the show and has, again, the same amount of Kanzens, obviously, again, Caleb has 2 finalist appearances against them. In a spot where, again, Jeff only cleared stage 1 once in his career. Isaac only cleared stage 2 once in his career. However, Caleb, again, has 2 finalist appearances, a win within that. And really, that's obviously what makes him a big differentiator between all the other teams that we talked about as honorable mentions. Where obviously, again, had Nazca Garemore gone on to win the show, had Noah Molnir gone on to win the show, they would probably be around here on this list, despite only having 2 seasons. Where again, I do think having a win is something that would fundamentally place you in the top 10 at this point, especially with the 2 finalist appearances as well. But so really, that's the main basis of why Caleb is here. As really outside that, again, his career early on was not the greatest, not even honorable mention worthy. Where again, he's really here obviously off the basis of A&W's 15 and 16, but those were just such impressive runs with again a win at the end, which I do think puts Caleb here all the way up here, number 4. Now number 3, and again, easy top 3. I think these are always the top 3 in my head. I never really doubted that this was going to be the top 3. Questions the order, and again, I think number 1's kind of undisputable. We'll talk about it, but number 2 and 3, I think are a little bit interchangeable. But again, number 3 are going to the person that I would have said was the GOAT a couple years ago, and just first performance on the show, not his real life because he's a terrible human being. But at number 3, we have Drew Drechsel, and again, purely his A&W performance, not anything outside the show, because obviously, if we're ranking this on quality of human being, Drew Drechsel would be at the bottom of the list. Yeah, again, as a competitor in A&W, Drew Drechsel did have a very impressive career. Again, 10 seasons, only failed to make it to Vegas once in that entire time, has only failed stage 1 officially once, with that being A&W 3, where he got injured along the way, and had he not got injured, he probably easily clears in that spot as well, and has made the stage 3 4 times, which again is, I believe, the second most appearances in stage 3, and has been, again, last man standing multiple times. Last man standing A&W's 8, 10, and obviously 11 with very obviously Kanzens. And again, he does have a Kanzen, just something to really prop him up here, even though again his Kanzen is probably the worst Kanzen of the bunch, especially considering again he Kanzen simply because he had the safety pass. If he did not have that in stage 1, he would have just failed stage 1 and never won. But again, the fact that he has a Kanzen definitely boosts him on the list, where again, if he didn't have that Kanzen in A&W 11, he would obviously be closer to the Joe Moravskis of the world, where his career would be one where again, there were definitely high points. He definitely had a consistency of clearing stage 1, had some consistency in making the stage 3, though again, just very much struggled there, though again, he did clear the one time he did, and proceeded to win the entire show. So again, it's enough to put him at number 3, even though again, he is a terrible human being, and want to put him this high because of that, but again, I kind of had to if we're going by overall ability. Now number 2, and this one's one that again, you could debate if this person's better or worse than Drew, as again, this person is someone that also has a Kanzen, but clearly didn't Kanzen against Drew, but I still think they're worthy of number 2. That person's Daniel Gill. And again, I think the argument here would be, why is Drew higher? Because Drew won A&W 11, where Daniel didn't. And again, I think if we're doing this immediately after A&W 11, obviously Drew's higher than Daniel Gill. Really, for probably the next few years, he probably is. But now that Daniel Gill has a Kanzen in A&W 15 and comes close to Kanzening again in A&W 16, or again, had he cleared road signs, considering it's literally the same final stage he just cleared a few days ago, he probably ends up clearing again in A&W 16. I think that definitely boosts Daniel Gill on this list here. I mean, again, he does have a very consistent record. He's been on 9 seasons, made to Vegas 7 of those times, where again, one of those times is A&W 12, where there was no Vegas, but that's also a season where he won. Obviously, again, very different format, but again, he literally is a winner, technically before he ever Kanzen, so that's something. Well, also beyond that, the other one was because of COVID, to where, again, he's never legitimately not made it to Vegas his entire career, and has also never legitimately not made it to stage 2 either. Again, he has cleared stage 1 every single time he has run it, which again is pretty unprecedented. I mean, again, even the number 1 person on this list has a stage 1 fail, where again, he's also the only person even in the entire top 10 to not have a stage 1 fail. I think even when looking at the people in contention, you really only have, again, the teens, obviously, and then I believe Josh Levin. I think those are literally the only people that have never failed stage 1 in their entire careers, to where, and that is an insane stat for Daniel Gill. Now, obviously, his record of getting past stage 2 is a little bit rocky. Again, he fails it 3 times in his career. Also, again, his stage 3 appearance in A&W 8 is not particularly great. So again, he still clears stage 3 twice. Almost again clears it again in A&W 16. Also, again, having a Kanzen on his belt. Where again, I just think at the end of the day, I do think Daniel has surpassed Drechsel. Just looking at their overall careers, where again, I think Daniel has just shown himself to be a more consistent competitor now. Again, has never failed stage 1, unlike Drew. They have the exact same stage 2 record, while also again, Daniel having one extra finalist appearance. To where I just think at the end of the day, Daniel Gill has surpassed Drew Drechsel on this list, and that's why he's here at number 2. Now, number 1, I mean, again, kind of has to be this at this point. I think there are very few arguments against this number 1 placement. I think there is one, which we'll talk about, but really in general, I think it's tough to not say that number 1 on this list isn't Vance Walker. And again, Vance Walker, obviously is now a 2-time winner of the show. No other person's ever won the show 2 times, unless you want to like quantify Daniel Gill's 12 win and then also say just Konzaning is winning. But again, Vance Walker is someone that has Konzan twice, actually won those 2 seasons, while also, again, having a decent record before that. Now, again, it's a little bit spotty. Obviously, again, I think AEW 13 is a very good rookie appearance for him, makes it all the way to stage 3. I knew even then he failed stage 2, but gets safety pass. But still, very solid performance there. Has a very rocky sophomore year, failing the jumping spire, but beyond that, has a really insane AEW 15 and 16, to where, again, wins both those seasons. I think that is something that already puts you in the number 1 position. Now, again, as I said, I think there's an argument against this. And that is simply, again, the fact that obviously he was going to win AEW 16 because it's literally the exact same format and almost the exact same course as AEW 15. And again, I can understand that argument. It also does show a level of consistency. That does show that Vance was able to literally just do it again. That this wasn't a fluke in the way that, again, you could argue that with someone like a Jeff in particular, where we never really saw him be able to do the same thing that he was able to do the first time around. Where mixing that into the fact that also did this back-to-back filming wise as well, where considering had literally no real rest in between all this. Again, these 2 seasons, Vegas's were filmed back to back to back to back, to where he literally had to be doing something every one of these days. I think is also another impressive feat in his AEW 16 win. And actually, like, got better in AEW 16, where, again, he doesn't fail anything in Vegas of AEW 16, where, again, he actually failed the falling shells in AEW 15. Now, again, at the end of the day, I think he would have cleared it if it was a more genuine course. Again, fails it simply because, again, it was a race and he was trying to rush it. But still, again, I think Vance Walker has demonstrated over 2 seasons now complete dominance of the course. I think he has had such an impressive run across the 2 seasons, won both of those seasons, with his AEW 16 performance in particular being pretty flawless. And also, again, just considering the fact that he's the only person to have 2 wins in the history of the show, which also means he has 2 finalist appearances, which very few people do, while also having 3 stage 3 appearances, which also very few people do, where his consistency in making the stage 3 here is pretty impressive. Again, he's made it on 75% of the seasons he's even competed on, and I just think there's a lot of things pointing to Vance being the very clear number 1 on the list, so where, again, you could definitely qualm with certain things. I think there's definitely arguments against him, though, again, for me, it is just the fact that he won twice and has clearly shown himself to be one of the best rope climbers in all of AEW, to where he is a very talented ninja outside that. And again, if he's able to make it to final stage, he just will always win, seemingly. So again, by the end of it, I do think Vance ends up being a pretty clear number 1 on the list. But again, that is my top 10 competitors for AEW. Now, again, as I said, I won't be covering AEW 17, but that doesn't mean I won't be talking about AEW 17 ever, as I actually have another AEW video I want to do a bit later in the year, that being an updated season ranking of AEW, to where I will actually say I feel like I actually have more solidified opinions on AEW seasons than I did in the past. Again, I literally did this 5 years ago after AEW 11, and that was a point where, like, I kind of half-assed that video straight up. Again, I did a lot of it from memory, and where I think in the years since I've kind of become a bit more solidified my opinions on certain seasons. So again, I'll be redoing that video this year, and obviously I'll do it after AEW 17 so I can add AEW 17 to the list itself. But again, stay tuned for that at some point down the road. Beyond that, again, don't really know what other AEW videos I'm going to do. As I said before, again, I would like to do a top 10 female competitor list as well. I definitely would like to do some obstacle related videos as well, but I just don't know when those will really come. But again, I'll still try to do them periodically. But outside that, obviously just expect more of the typical style of content you can expect from the channel, more Survivor Big Brother related things, and some random other stuff along the way. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.